to the Comic Vault. Today, Eric and I are going to start with our featured mini-series, and then I'm going to go into some singles, and a couple of those you read along with me, so you'll have some things to add after we get done with our featured book, but less stuff than last time. I think I did more comics this time.
Yeah, I didn't get a lot of comic reading done this
I should mention that we promised Long Halloween, and this is so weird because we're a week after Halloween now, which, whatever, that's a theme on the channel this year, because we also have this with Batman year, which was supposed to have started, back half the 48-hour Halloween, which is supposed to happen, believe it or not, on Halloween, because Halloween is in the title, and we're still waiting for a costume on that. That hasn't happened yet.
It's not laziness,
it'll
it's
just be a
production
theme. Yeah, and Long Halloween is that way too. Eric, again, was not feeling well earlier in the week, and so he wasn't able to read quite as much stuff. So anyway, Long Halloween we will try to tackle next time, even though it will be 3 weeks after Halloween. In the meantime, we have so much on the show this week anyway, the omnibus, that I think it's all going to work out in the wash. This is spooky in its way anyway, so I think this still is a wonderful. I guess that is kind of what they are, yeah. So I guess this is kind of a nice Halloween time of the year kind of book to talk about anyway. Batman and the Shadow wrapped up just a couple of weeks ago, or was it a month ago?
I think it was like a month ago.
Yeah,
because we're on issue 2 of Shadow Batman. So.
Right. Yeah. And
but it started the immediate next month, I believe. I don't even think there was a break month.
There wasn't a break, yeah. So I just read the 6th issue. I mean, I read all of this together, but I hadn't read 6 yet. So I hadn't read up through 5 before I read 6. So it was really kind of fun.
I don't think I'd read 5 or 6.
Okay, cool. I thought it was really fun going back and reading all the material I had read before, but not knowing how it ended, and then getting to sit down and read the ending. And I'm just going to come right out and say, this is, let me say first, before I come right out and say things, that story here, Snyder and
Steve Orlando,
with art by, what is his name, and where are the credits in this book? Dear God Almighty.
I think they're on the last page.
Where are it's one of those?
I think it's one of those.
Yeah. It's, the Snyder's books tend to be that way. Riley Rossmo.
Who's wonderful.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think this is one of those art styles that is not more one thing than it is the other. It is very Batman, it is very Shadow. I think it fits.
I agree.
All of that. When Batman's there by himself, it doesn't feel like you're just looking at Shadow artwork. It's not like Ninja Turtles Ghostbusters, where when you look at the Ninja Turtles, you're looking at Ghostbusters art. It feels like Batman art and Shadow art all at the same time. But this book is all about the similarities and differences of those characters.
You could do just a Batman book with this art, or just a Shadow book with this art, and it would feel fine.
It would work just fine.
I mean, it helps that they're complementary characters.
And that's what I was trying to say, is that part of that is because, part of why that works is because the book is all about the ways in which they're the same character, and then the ways in which they're not. I'm going to come right out and say this is absolutely one of the best crossovers I've ever read. I think it's probably in my top 5 at least. It's super solid, it's really thought-provoking, and it's wonderfully inventive in being all about the lore and history of these characters and how one begets the other, kind of, while also telling a pretty compelling story and being a really nice character piece for both of these guys. I'm going to go so far as to say my least favorite thing about this is the fact that it is not canon for either universe. It should be for both. I want Batman and the Shadow to exist in the same universe. I want the Shadow to have maybe been the guy who trained Batman. That's a big question all the way through.
As far as I'm concerned,
for Batman's side at least.
For Batman's side, that's canon. The Shadow being Ducard is canon.
It's too good.
As far as I'm concerned, moving forward, that's what that is.
Well, and I want the end of this, whether you think it's too big or not, because now that I've read it, I know what you're talking about. But I want the end of this to be canon because I feel like Batman, in a very Snydery way, without it being heavy-handed like Snyder sometimes can be, I feel like Batman learns so much about who he is contrasted with the Shadow, that I want him to remember that all of this happened. Like, I feel like the Shadow ends up being such a great foil for Batman, where it is Batman and the Shadow and Batman versus the Shadow all at the same time, but ideologically. This is what I wanted from something like BVS, where it's, I don't mean exactly the story, but I mean where it's about the ideologies. This is Batman versus the Shadow, but they don't fight. That's not what it's about.
Okay, so I'm going to up front do my 2 complaints.
Yeah, go ahead.
Because I have 2 complaints. One is...
And we should probably give a slight synopsis at some point, but yeah,
yes,
go ahead.
Yeah. Okay, so one of them is Shambhala. So you don't know this, but in the 80s, Howard Chaykin did a miniseries with The Shadow called The Shadow Blood and Judgment.
I do know that, but I haven't read it.
It comes out in 86.
I want to say Vince either reviewed it on the channel once all those years ago, or he's just mentioned it to me. But
it might be interesting for us to do at some point, because it's another one of those, like, it's another one of those miniseries that came out in 86 that is also part of the changing the comic book game kind of a thing.
Yeah.
It's hyper violent. But he introduces the idea that the Shadow learned to be the Shadow in Shambhala. It's also explained there that because that is the first time we do the Shadow comes to modern day, and it's not the Shadow in modern day. It is the Shadow from the pulps. Now is in the 80s, and the explanation is he's in Shambhala. It does seem to have become formative reading for anyone ever writing the Shadow in comics, and has like forced its way into canon. Anytime we
is
do,
that just because it's a good explanation for why he's still around? Like we have to have that?
Possibly. I feel like there are other explanations you could do.
Because this uses it like his Lazarus Pit. And yeah, I'm not going to be as critical about that stuff because I don't know that character very well. And I enjoyed learning about him through Batman's lens because I care about Batman. And the Shadow, I know the movie, and that's about it. So,
it's not exactly a complaint, but it's a little annoying that we have to keep going back to Shambhala, especially in the comics. Anytime, I mean, mostly anytime we go to modern day, but it's in other Shadow comics too. It's just this thing where I'm like, okay, that isn't actually inherent to the character.
But in this, what would you have done? I mean, like with the story they're telling, he's gotta be kind of immortal.
I feel like there are other ways around that, or it doesn't have to be Shambhala.
Okay.
Like, for years he learned, secrets in the Orient and things like that. And
but what I really liked about it, I don't know. I feel like the end of it makes a really good case for it. Maybe it earns it because
I'm not even fully complaining about it in this series. It's
Yeah.
just we also did a series called The Shadow Now. I assume the current series is also doing Shambhala. Like, we've done a lot, and I'm like, but it's not even like, it's weird that this miniseries from the 80s essentially has become canon.
maybe the new one won't. I mean, maybe Shadow Batman doesn't do that. I don't know.
I don't know.
And it's the same guy writing, but without Snyder. By the way, I should say, we're jumping all over the place. I think Snyder had to have been pretty involved in this. Like, I don't think his name is just on it.
Mm-hmm.
The flavor of it is so different, and the writing is so far, in my opinion, so much better than Shadow Batman, that I feel like you gotta give Snyder some of this.
Yeah. Which we weren't at the beginning.
No.
At the beginning we were like, yeah, it doesn't feel like a Snyder book. He probably just like
Had
threw
lunch
his
with
name.
him one time, yeah.
No,
I wonder if he didn't help pretty intricately plot it.
Yeah. I don't think he wrote any of it,
No,
but he
certainly not.
probably plotted it quite a bit.
Well, and I mean, like, it doesn't say that he did, so he probably didn't. He's not given writing credit. He's given story credit. But I think that it was probably more than a lunch.
My other complaint, and this is a more major one, because that first one is very fanboy.
I will get into why I like the Shambhala thing, but go ahead.
Okay. The other
Not looking at this as a fan of that material.
the other thing is, I think by the end of it, it does throw the Shadow under the bus a little bit.
Yeah.
And does kind of come out and say, like, yeah, Batman came from the Shadow, but Batman's better. We use the word better.
Yeah, that's kind of there up front, and you have to know that's where it's going from the beginning. We're talking about mentors wanting their pupils to outshine them.
My problem is, I feel like this book is so meta and commentating on itself, I think it's a little inappropriate to have gotten there. But maybe there's arguments made that Batman is better. Like, Batman is the character that resonated in culture forever.
It'll be interesting to see how much of a companion piece the Dynamite book is versus the DC book. Mm-hmm. Because if they both make the point the other way, that could be really interesting.
No, that could be really interesting.
Now, I don't know that they will. Shadow's hardly in that first issue. I don't know what in the world's going on with that book. But we'll see when we finish reading it and we talk about it. But with this, like, I feel like there's a case to be made, and the fact that it makes that case doesn't mean that you can't make the other case necessarily. I don't know if that's fair, but I mean, like, you're absolutely right. I mean, it does seem to be saying that Batman is the better man and maybe the better character, but I don't know. It's making that point. So, well, just within the story itself, I feel like it makes for a great story. I mean,
it is a good story. It's that metatextual level where I'm like, I don't like that you said better. And that,
well, the problem is I agree with that. I do think Batman's a better character.
And that the Shadow's methods specifically are thrown under the bus. The fact that he kills people is, like, I get that Batman doesn't like that, but I feel like the story also comes down on it. And I don't.
Well, it does. I mean, in Shambhala, this is part of what I like about it. Like the people in Shambhala are saying that like, the Shadow is a bad person. He's always been a bad person. He's maybe even lost himself even more after they gave him his powers, and that, like, this is his penance. Being the Shadow and stopping crime and stuff. And Batman, his whole career has been about stopping himself from ever being that person, and he's managed it. Like, I don't know. Maybe I'm just drinking the Kool-Aid and it won me over too much in the argument. But I see in this book Batman as the guy trying really hard not to turn into the Shadow. The Shadow represents everything Batman's always tried not to be, and yet Batman sees the humanity in him. And I like that bit at the end where he's like, where the Shadow says, "I'm not a good person." Batman said, "Well, you could be."
Well, and that's also a thing that, much like the Shambhala thing, that has embedded itself in Shadow canon, is
he's a bad person.
The Yin-Ko idea from the movie.
Yeah.
The idea that he used to be a monster. I like that idea
because that's the only version I'm familiar with.
But it also
comics I've read.
It seems like comic book people maybe just go read Blood and Judgment and then watch the movie.
Yeah.
And
that's all they've got.
I don't know. Because we also do that in...
To be fair, he did go to lots of Shadow lore I'd never heard of before. I don't know who Stag is. He went to Margot Lane. Like, there's a lot of stuff he went to.
Yeah, and he's got a lot of his agents that obviously aren't in... Well, most of his agents are in Blood and Judgment. But Matt Wagner's clearly a fan of the Shadow, and he does that stuff in year one. So
yeah,
that's not here nor there. It's interesting that these are two things that do not come from the source material of the Shadow that have basically embedded themselves into the canon.
I could really see the complaint, and obviously, if I had read all that stuff, I might feel that way too. Mm-hmm. If I had a real affinity for the Shadow, this doesn't read. Here's what's weird. I think it does a really good job of being a Batman book and a Shadow book, but I feel like it's a Shadow book not exactly for Shadow people all at the same time.
It's a Batman book with the Shadow.
Yeah.
And in comparison,
but it's using a lot of his mythology for the background, which makes it easy to say it's 50-50.
Well, but I think this legitimately is Batman Shadow. In contrast, the first issue of Shadow Batman is not a Shadow book. It is also a Batman book.
Yeah, it's weird.
It would be nice if that was a Shadow book and we were seeing Batman through his lens.
Me too.
Because I think I wish
that's what we were doing.
This is the Shadow through Batman's lens. I like that for this series.
Yeah.
We should do a brief plot synopsis. I think you're right.
Yeah.
After I've babbled on about.
There's a dude named Lamont Cranston that's not the original Lamont Cranston, that is a descendant of the Shadow, that gets murdered, and he's like this really nice guy who works at Arkham Asylum and is just like really humane to all the prisoners
and
there.
Everyone loves him.
Which ends up being really interesting because that's the antithesis to what the Shadow is, and that's the kind of example Batman thinks he's trying to set. I really like that. That ends up kind of foreshadowing things and coming back and being a big thematic crux of the book. Like, this is a really tight narrative, I think. Mm-hmm. But anyway, so Batman discovers the Shadow and the original Lamont Cranston, how far back he goes in his research, and he thinks that he killed this Lamont Cranston. Mm-hmm. And so he's trying to find the Shadow and bring him to justice, and then over time he starts to discover that the Shadow may have been Ducard and possibly everybody else who ever helped train Batman. Yep. And he at least claims that because he goes to Ducard for help, and then Ducard reveals himself as the Shadow at the end of the first issue, which was a mind freak. The first time I read this issue, I lost it at that. I thought that was just wonderful.
Yep.
Because
it's a killer first issue.
When you, like, even if the rest of it was horrible, it would be really hard not to put this in a top 10 of the year. That first issue. When you crack this open, the first thing you expect is some kind of explanation for how universes cross. Mm. And immediately we have these guys in the same universe, and then we make the Shadow, we do this meta-contextual commentary where we say, because Batman is so influenced by, and you could argue, a ripoff of the Shadow had to train him. And I just love that existing in the same world, the Shadow actually physically begets Batman. I really like that.
I also like that.
And so the Joker ends up teaming up with the Stag, who is this really scary, seemingly omnipotent and ancient, maybe can't be killed villain of
I don't
the Shadows.
fully understand him by the end.
No, I don't totally do either, but
the reveal for how he's immortal doesn't make sense to me.
And his motivations, I think, are somewhat of a letdown.
He's evil.
Well, no, it's
and
revenge.
He hates good.
It's I don't know. It's somewhat of a letdown where it's like he's just upset because Shambhala led to the death of his evil brother. Like, they're both evil, and
doesn't it feel like the entire story they're Cain and Abel? But then you get to it and you're like, well, that's not how the Cain and Abel story went. So they're just two other brothers.
I didn't even think of it, but you're right. Cain is mentioned, and I didn't. Yeah,
they're not Cain. They can't be Cain and Abel. They have to be two other brothers that date back to biblical times.
No, that's true, because that's not how that ends. They're both there, and he's really upset about it. That's not how that works. One should have murdered the other. That's how that goes. Anyway, But yeah, so basically the ideological conflict between the two is kind of your standard should Batman kill or not, but through a really, really fresh pair of eyes, I think.
Mm-hmm.
And the Shadow thinks that it's necessary to kind of control the universe. He's basically what Batman is always afraid that he might become, and in a way is kind of like that Kingdom Come version of Batman, where he's like totalitarian and he controls everything.
Well, and it shows the Shadow as... I was going to say it shows the Shadow as like an nth degree kind of Batman, or the Batman as a very muted Shadow where, like, occasionally Batman wears a disguise. The Shadow wears hundreds of disguises and doesn't seem to have a real identity. I mean, he does have a real identity, but like, he's not Lamont Cranston, but he's also not all these other people. There's a point where he's Leslie Tompkins, and I love that.
Yeah, I did too.
Like, he's the master of disguises.
And he keeps showing faces from people, including Batman. He looks like Batman for one panel.
Batman, has a couple of people he works with. The Shadow has agents. The Shadow has people everywhere that work for him.
Yeah, and he thinks of himself as better than everyone.
Yeah. Yeah.
He's over everything. He has to run everything. He knows best. And you can't. You're weak if you show criminals mercy of any kind because they're the enemy. They're supposed to be completely stamped out. And also, the big difference between Batman and the Shadow is the Shadow lives forever, thinks he has to, he wants to, and maybe he doesn't actually want to, but he thinks it's necessary. And Batman thinks...
No, he doesn't want to, because that's part of the bittersweet ending is... He has to be the Shadow forever
but he pretends like he does. But I'm not sure if he didn't think he wanted to before and he kind of changes his mind. That's a question. Having just read this through once, but altogether once. But I kind of like... And again, this could have played way sappier, more heavy-handed, especially under Snyder's pen if he was by himself. And I was really impressed by the fact that I really liked this, where at the end, Batman is given the choice at Shambhala to live forever and be the next Shadow. There's also, by the way, I should mention, a whole lot of parallels you can draw to Ra's al Ghul with this. The Shadow wants him to be the next version of himself, and he thinks that you have to murder or at least kill bad people in order to preserve the culture and make things better and stuff. He probably in some cases would be for the tear down the culture in order to make it a new kind of thing. But anyway, and he's also kind of got a Lazarus pit. But you get to the end of this, and Batman is given that choice, and he says no because there is no Batman without death. And I love that.
Well,
I hadn't really thought of it in those terms, but like Batman starts from a death place. He sees his parents get killed, and you can't sustain what he's hoping to change about people if you're just controlling everyone. That's not sustainable. There has to be another Batman that can carry on that torch and keep showing people that they can be that they can be good people, and that they don't have to control everything.
Yeah, because I think he specifically mentions like I'm going to die and Dick's going to be Batman. He's going to be great.
And also you're trying to improve yourself. You're trying to have someone else improve themselves over you.
Yeah, and that he's going to be better than me, or he is better than me.
Yeah. And I loved that idea.
Yeah. No, it's a really interesting idea. I just feel like it's throwing the Shadow under the bus a little bit.
That's fair. Yeah, I totally understand that. But the Shadow does feel like a really flawed character, and Batman's flawed too. But
okay, here's the thing, and this shows up in all modern interpretations of this character, except for actually the film doesn't do this. We have a really cynical take on this character in everything. All of the Dynamite comics have this, the good ones and the bad ones, where when you go back to the original source material, it kind of condones his actions. He's just a force of judgment upon evil. When we put
it in a force of nature or something.
Yes, when we put it in the modern context, we have to talk about what a monster he is, and like there always has to be some kind of talk about but he's kind of a jerk. And
it's like we're putting too much of our modern sensibility is forcing that on him.
Yeah, and that's here too.
Yeah.
It's treated well, but it is a thing in every modern adaptation of the Shadow. We can't just let him be. We have to talk about how but he's a jerk. Yeah, but he's a bad guy. Yeah, but it's not okay that he's doing these things. I'm like, he's escapist. It's fine. And I feel like this book kind of delves into that a little bit too, where it's it can't just be the Shadow and Batman hanging out together and
Yeah, but I guess the problem is I loved what it had to say so much about Batman that it can't just be an escapist romp. Like,
that's true.
It's about too much.
That's
I don't
true.
think that works. Now, you could make the argument, well, then the Shadow could have maybe been some other character. It could have been maybe anybody. I mean, like, I guess I'm liking what it has to say about Batman as it's throwing the Shadow under the bus. But the Shadow is this... Here's the thing. The Shadow is this kind of elemental force in a way Batman isn't, but pretends like he is. Mm-hmm. And I think I appreciated the fact that this is not a cynical take on Batman, and we have kind of had that a lot lately with Batman too, where like he's a crazy person.
Yeah,
and like Snyder has been pushing back on that hard. Like one thing you really have to give Snyder is that he went back and humanized Batman in a way nobody had in a really long time.
Well, I mean that was the point of Morrison's run, and he's kind of picking up on that. But
yeah, that's okay. That's fair.
But because
I guess I shouldn't say a long time, but there's a lot of things that don't do that, and we're like it's all. And I mean, I like the question of is Batman maybe also a crazy person because you have that eternal ends justifies the means ethics versus just doing the right thing, and there's always that question to be had. But I don't know. I guess I like that Batman is like just a guy trying to do the right thing in this.
Yeah. No, I really like this Batman. Well, we talked about this when the first issue came out. If he was
immortal, he would lose his humanity.
Yeah. Well, we talked about this when the first issue came out. It was so nice to have like a detective story.
Yeah.
No, this is a really good Batman comic. It's an okay Shadow comic. As a piece, as a whole, I really like it. I think it's really good. It is one of the best character crossovers I've read.
I love how...
Now, I've never read the original crossovers that Dennis O'Neil did in Batman. There are 2 issues that Dennis O'Neil wrote.
Okay.
Back in the 70s.
I didn't know that.
Yeah.
Cool.
But I've not read those, so...
We should try to get our hands on those.
We should. You know, Vince probably has them.
He probably does. Yeah. We should talk to Vince about this, because I don't know what he thinks of it. I'm sure he's been buying it. But yeah.
I want to say yes or that. But anyways, no, it's a good series. I do think it gets a little big at the end. Scale-wise, it's a little... It's big for both of them, I think.
I wondered if it didn't... Well, how in what way is it too big for Batman?
I don't know. Well, because... Reading this book, it feels like the more classic grounded Batman. Like, it's not too big for the Batman that's on the Justice League, but this felt like the smaller, more detective Batman. So, like, when we get to the cosmic beings and things, I was like, well, I don't even need to be this. It's the Joker and a guy wearing a bat skin. Like,
that's fair, but he is dealing with the supernatural force. Like the answer to the mystery is ultimately, it turns out it's a supernatural force. There is no answer. Like it's magic. You can't explain this. Like, I think that all tracks and fits and makes sense. I think the world starts to open up and peel back as it continues, and it's kind of the only possible answer. I also like that Stag is too big for the Shadow to understand. That like because of the Shadow's like really narrow black and white kind of worldview, he's not realizing that what he's dealing with is a bunch of different people. I like that idea.
Okay, but I don't understand that.
Yeah,
so the explanation is he's not immortal.
Also, how Snyder is that?
Yeah.
That it would be a whole bunch of people that have infiltrated everything, and yeah.
Okay, so he's not immortal, there's just a bunch of him. But all of those must be immortal, yes?
They must at least have powers of some kind, because they got that from... The original got it from Shyamalan. Like,
but it's not like they're... Like, I don't get the impression that they're breeding.
They're not clones
this is
or something.
Yeah.
Yeah. Where did he get them? What are they?
At the very least, they don't age. Like, there must be a bunch of them and they don't age at the very least. I don't know. It just seems weird.
Well, yeah, you're absolutely right. I'm not sure exactly how there are as many of them. So many of them.
Because when Batman presents it as an explanation, it seems like it's the Hound of Baskervilles, where it's like, no, there's a completely rational explanation. He's not immortal, it's just a bunch of them. Like, no, but he goes back to the dawn of time.
Right, but what I'm trying to explain is, it's not an explanation necessarily about his immortality, or just his immortality. It's about how he's able to... The Shadow keeps killing him.
Mm-hmm.
Like, it's more about that, right? That he's able to be in multiple places at once than it is about how long he's lived. I thought that was the explanation.
It feels like such a weird.
Again, I don't know how he got so many of them.
Like the Shadow's like, well, I keep killing him and he keeps coming back. Is it any more rational that there's just a bunch of him that have existed for thousands of years than... I don't know, it feels like it's presented as like an explanation, like, well, you never thought of this? I'm like, well, no, because it's just as absurd as he's immortal.
I didn't get it. I didn't take it that way. Okay. I didn't take it as a rational thing. I took it as the Shadow's narrow-minded and solves everything in the same way, so the point is he didn't think of this other alternative. It's not that it's more reasonable, it's just that if only he had realized what was going on, he would have tackled it differently, and we would have solved this already.
I see.
It's supposed to be about the ways in which they're each limited by their ideologies. So the Shadow's problem is he just shoots everything, and Batman's problem is he doesn't shoot anything. That's all it is. So the Joker is still around and kicking because Batman won't just pick up 2 pistols and shoot him in the head, and the Stag is still kicking because the Shadow keeps shooting him instead of using his brains. That's all it's about, I thought.
Yeah, no, that's fair.
So I liked that a lot, but I'm with you. I don't know how there's so many of them.
I love the Joker design in this.
I figured you would. I'm fine with it.
I mean, the actual face or whatever is just fine. No, what I love about it is because when we got to the end of, I think it's issue 2, and we get the Joker reveal, I was like, how have we never done this before? He's just wearing a purple T-shirt that's drawn like a suit. I love that.
Yeah, okay,
of
that's
course
fun.
The Joker wears a T-shirt that looks like the Joker suit.
Can I tell you my problem with it? You said something months ago that keeps coming up to me, or maybe years ago now, that keeps coming up in my reading before. This comes up whenever I read a Joker thing, and it's become like my litmus test to some degree with the Joker. I start to maybe not cry foul, but just kind of yearn for a different kind of Joker whenever I ask your question, can the Joker still be funny? And this one cracks jokes and has witty things to say and has a really cool vernacular. This is the cerebral Joker. I like that a lot. I like that he seems like a guy who he's the 89 chemist, right? Or more of a philosopher. This guy feels like he's read everything. But he's not funny, and I got tired of him talking. And so I'm not even picking up on anything fun he's doing, like the T-shirt he's wearing, because he's not a fun Joker. No, he's just the serial killer Joker, which I am tired of. And I would almost go as far as to say, and he's the Dark Knight chaotic Joker, right? At the very least, he's Snyder's Joker. I'm just who I. He's the endgame death of the family. I'm not wearing a mask. Who is very philosophical. Yeah. But I don't know. I would almost go as far as to say that this series could have been an issue shorter if the Joker wasn't constantly talking. I did kind of get tired of that. No, that's totally fair. And I think it even messes with the pacing a little bit. He's not a great take on the Joker. I just really like that he's wearing a T-shirt. That's my big thing. Is I was like, how have we never done that before? He's not fun. He's not fun the way the Joker should be fun. He is just kind of. He's that pure evil. It does work as a team up in one of these crossover things, though. Mm-hmm. I like the ways in which Joker thinks that he can use and manipulate Stag, and why he thinks he can work with him. And I like that Batman talks about the Joker as someone who doesn't work with people, because it drives me crazy when he does. Mm-hmm. So this worked really well to me. Mm-hmm. And I'm getting into some complaints, but overall, I just think this is really quite brilliant. No, I agree. I have some issues as a fan of the character the Shadow. Yeah, that's totally fair. But no, it's a great story. It's a great miniseries. I think part of the reason I fell so hard for this is because I don't know the Shadow, and I don't mean in that I'm ignorant about it. I mean that I fell in love with that character within the context of this as what it is as a Batman character, which is precisely what I had with Batman Predator, because I read that stuff before I ever saw the Predator film, and I didn't know anything about Predator. And I loved Predator as a Batman villain. And that was Shadow. I liked the Shadow as a Batman character. Yeah. In this. No, it's a really good series. But I would highly recommend people check it out. Read Shadow stuff. And it's one of the few I think miniseries like this that I really think is worth picking up down the road. If you missed this, you did miss something, and you should go back when the trade comes out. Yeah, because crossovers are dime a dozen. We do them all the time. Yeah, and this is a genuinely good story. Yeah. It is not just the fun of what if this character and this character met, and then they have the exact same adventure every other character has when they meet. This is not the exact same adventure everyone else has when they meet. This is not Ninja Turtles Batman. Yeah, and it's not Power Rangers Justice League. Yeah, and nothing should be. But if that's finished up, and maybe I'll review it at some point, but that would mean I would have to read it. If you don't know the Shadow, read this anyway. If you love Batman, you don't know the Shadow. Absolutely, this is a really good Batman story. Gives you everything you need to I'm not super familiar with the Shadow. I don't think I needed to be to read this. No, and it sounds like I might have had more issues with it if I did. So, as a Shadow fan, it's fine. It's the same thing that we've gotten for the past couple of years. It's the Dynamite Shadow. I guess is the best way I can put it. It's the Dynamite Shadow.
And I like some of the Dynamite stuff.
I mean, that's fair. It does kind of say, like, Dynamite Shadow. Like, I don't think that's on purpose, but it does actually say Dynamite Shadow. You know,
yeah,
like...
it's true.
But yeah, I kind of adored this, ultimately, and I think it's, as you said, this is something special. And if you missed it, you should read it.
Yeah, I agree.
All right, moving right along to some singles. Eric, I'm going to talk about a couple of things real quick,
Sure,
and then we can talk about the things that you and I both read. Very briefly, I'll mention Ninja Turtles Ghostbusters 2. I was really surprised that we decided to cross this over again, to bring this back, but I suspect it's just because Tom Waltz and Eric Burnham are such close friends and love working together.
Well, and Burnham's not got a Ghostbusters series going on right now.
Right now, he doesn't, yeah. And they like to keep throwing work at him as much as humanly possible to keep him working.
Ghostbusters seem to be working on the Hellboy model now, right? Like, there was always a Ghostbusters comic in print in some form or fashion.
Yeah, and that's only been true, though, over, like, the last year or so, because we had the International Ghostbusters thing. What was that called? Is it Ghostbusters International? What is that called?
Yeah, it's Ghostbusters
That was 12 issues, and so that was sort of a monthly for a year.
But before that...
No, but before that, we did have some gaps here and there where,
there
wasn't anything.
Okay.
Yeah. Pardon me, I believe so. But anyway, I don't know if you're aware of this, but, so you know that Tom Waltz writes Ninja Turtles and Burnham writes Ghostbusters, but Waltz is also the editor of Ghostbusters. So these guys are working together all the time. Mm. And I suspect that's the reason they crossed these over in the first place. The coolest thing about both of these, just the Ninja Turtles Ghostbusters crossover thing in the first place, is that they're both canon for both series, and they continue to refer to them. So, in each of these series, Ninja Turtles is just a thing in another dimension that occasionally shows up, and they will refer to it, and they will, occasionally Ninja Turtles will talk about the Ghostbusters, and I think that's so cool that they're allowed to do that. And so, what we have... So what we have with this, in where it is in the timeline, that I really appreciate is this is the very next thing that happens. I should have talked about this first, honestly. This is the very next thing that happens after Ninja Turtle 75.
Okay.
They're in Dimension X, and when they leave Dimension X, they get pulled out of there by the Ghostbusters because they Or where exactly do they go? I just read this, and I kind of had to kind of rush it. But anyway, they yeah, they get pulled. Okay, so one of them goes over to the Ghostbusters world. Meanwhile, eventually all four of them end up going into kind of the astral plane, and they're being stuck there by a guy that I don't remember that was apparently in, because there's so many issues in Ninja Turtles at this point. It's been years now, but I gotta go back and find this material. But there's a guy that Splinter is responsible for getting killed, who is trying to get revenge by sticking the Ninja Turtles in kind of like an astral vortex for a long time, and making Splinter like feel horrible that he has the turtles, and like kidnapping them and doing terrible things to them, and that's his whole plan. And so the Ghostbusters are trying to help get them out of there, and like they know that they're there, and they're able to go in and talk to them and stuff, but they're ultimately not able to just bring them right back. Like, they can go in and out, but they can't bring the turtles back for reasons. So anyway, but it's kind of fun that this is where they end up right after the Dimension X thing, where they've had this like really horrible month. They've dealt with the trial of Krang, and they've been fighting this alien species with the Triceratons, and then they don't even get a break, and now they're like trapped on an astral plane, which may or may not actually be purgatory, which is kind of fun. The setup with this is okay. The premise isn't, honestly, I don't think it's great or anything. Like,
it doesn't sound like a 6-issue or 4-issue. Like, that sounds like a one-shot.
Yeah, and I'm kind of afraid. This is the problem you run into a lot with Ghostbusters, is that I don't know that. And I hesitate to say this because it makes me sound really superficial, but I don't know where the action is in this book. It's kind of a lot of technobabble and talking about like how we're going to get these people to escape from a vortex. You want the Ninja Turtles to get to be proactive in some way beyond just Donatello working with Egon and like using his know-how and again spewing a bunch of technobabble. And there are entire like boxes and even pages that I don't really know what I'm reading because it's so much tech. There's some fun banter and stuff in this, as you would expect. I was not a big fan of the first Ninja Turtles Ghostbusters crossover, and I'm kind of afraid that I'm going to feel the same way about this ultimately, because I didn't love this first issue, but I like seeing these guys write together, and I like some of the... I don't know. The execution is better than the premise, I guess is the best way to put it. So anyway, I also am not super keen...
How did you feel about the first one?
Like I said, I didn't love it.
Okay.
It's been a while since I've read it. So.
Okay.
And I'm gonna be covering that with Deadpoolzilla eventually on one of our crossover specials. But the other thing I want to mention about this is I love Scherning's art for the Ghostbusters. I wish he was teaming up with someone else to do the Turtles, and that they didn't look like the Ghostbusters version of the Ninja Turtles. It's just kind of jarring, and one thing I've learned a lot with the IDW Turtles in general is that I'm really picky about the Turtles and what they should look like, and I fall in love so hard with Santalugo that when they don't look like that, it's kind of jarring for me. And I'm not saying they can't look like anything else, and we've had a lot of different styles, and a lot of them work. Like the Dimension X series, they look different. I like them there. There's some other places where it's a little more cartoony, where it's fun.
Well, these look like the '03 Turtles to me.
A little bit, not so much when you actually get into the issue. I don't think. My issue is they're just too bulky. I don't like this. I don't like how thick his neck is.
Yeah.
When you're looking at Raphael there, it's Scherning's style. I just don't think works great for the Ninja Turtles. That's all I'm saying. And it might be a little bit like that 2012 '87 crossover in the TV show, where when they go to another universe, that's what they look like. But the problem is when they I suspect that if the Ghostbusters went to the Ninja Turtles universe, it would still be Scherning drawing, and they would look like they look, So anyway, and also that wouldn't track, because when we get the real Ghostbusters over into this universe, it's not like they suddenly look like them; they look like the real Ghostbusters. So
right.
Anyway, so I'm a little bit lukewarm on this, but it's still worth reading, I think, if you're reading Ninja Turtles. It's more skippable for Ghostbusters, probably, but anyway, it's the only Ghostbusters thing going on right now.
So as
far as the original Ghostbusters go, they're doing a Answer the Call series right now that I'm not reading. But
so here's what's funny about this cover: is it says Ghostbusters 2, but there's a 2 here, which makes it seem like it's Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles and Ghostbusters 2. 2?
Yeah, like they're teaming up with specifically the Ghostbusters 2 Ghostbusters.
You know what you do with this cover?
Hilarious.
You make it the 2 Ghostbuster symbol.
That's what they should have done. That would be really funny. I like that. You make it Ninja Turtles Ghostbusters 2 Secret of the Ooze. That's what it should have been.
That's exactly what you do.
Okay, let me really briefly mention Power Rangers 20, and I don't mean to bring up Power Rangers every time, but I was going to talk about Power Rangers some last time, and I skipped it because we were running over.
Yeah.
So, whatever that means on this show. So, but I do want to mention this really quick because if just in case you were reading this but you thought it fell off or it wasn't going anywhere, I just wanted to mention really quick that
forever to go anywhere.
It really was, and it was kind of a lot of just fan service, and it was a lot of iconography.
The first arc was 20-ish, 18 issues.
It felt like a big freaking deal, and yet it didn't all at the same time, especially because you knew there would be some kind of sort of a reset thing. But anyway, so now that we've kind of gotten more down to earth, for Power Rangers, and I say that looking at a cover with the moon on it, what we have here, after a really neat reveal in issue 19, which I will spoil here, where we find out that this government agent lady, I think she's a government agent, I'm reading these month to month, so it's hard to keep track of everything, but she reveals herself finally as an old Red Ranger, which I think is such a cool idea, that Zordon actually had, very briefly, a group of Rangers in the 60s that were pulled from, they were astronauts, which is kind of neat when you look at the pilot, and that, they go to the moon, and there's those astronauts, and then Go-Go Power Rangers takes the astronauts, and they get kidnapped, and it's a whole thing. So, the original Power Rangers prior to the current team were brought in to fight Psycho Green, of all people, who was crash-landed on the moon and was kind of like hanging out in case anyone tried to disturb Rita's dumpster or something. I think that's what it is. And I just thought it was really cool that they were taking characters and iconography from other shows finally, like a lot more than they have so far. Taking a whole character from a whole other show. Still sort of Zordon era, but that's really cool. And anyway, so ultimately, I will just spoil this issue in case this sounds like something you might want to read and continue forward from here, because I think this might not be the worst jumping on point. this female astronaut, and they make a big deal out of how it was unusual to have female astronauts, becomes the Red Ranger, and there's like a male Pink Ranger, which is funny, and then the Black Ranger is also a girl. So they do a female Black Ranger, a female Red Ranger, and then Pink and Yellow are both guys. And
you know what's interesting is I want to talk about this next time, the Hyperforce thing that dropped.
I don't know what that is.
That's the role playing game thing that I sent you the link to.
Oh right, yeah.
I didn't get to watch it. I don't think you watched it, but we watched all of it.
I did. I skipped around.
But I actually want to talk about it next time because I want to watch
Power Rangers role playing game.
On the wiki,
it was just Time Force, right?
Well, it's the Time Force Academy.
Oh, okay.
So it's Time Force Pink is their teacher, but then one of them is the angry video game nerd guy. One of them is actually the Blue Ranger from Ninja Steel. One of them,
Bulk is there, yeah.
Yeah, so they're just all...
No, but I just mean for the game itself, like it's just a Time Force game, right?
Yeah, but they say they're going to travel around time, so that makes me think that we could cross
so
over
that's
to
how
other
they're
Rangers
integrating, and you could bring in other
And you could bring... Yeah. So anyways, on the Wikipedia for that, it says that series has the first female Black Ranger.
Oh, interesting.
And I bet you that dropped like days before that issue.
Crazy!
Sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you, but
No,
I had that.
right.
I had that thought.
Okay, interesting.
And if you guys want to go watch that, I want to talk about it next week, so you can be prepared for that.
So this is this Power Ranger team turns out to be a really, really crappy idea, and these Rangers don't get along, and they don't like that she's got to be in charge just because Zordon says she is. And there's this talk
they're
about
adults.
There's this talk about how Zordon maybe doesn't even know what he's talking about, where they're like, why are we trusting this guy? Like, he's just a big head in a tube. And I wondered where that was in the Power Rangers movie this year, where I was like, why are they just taking him at his word? You know, and I always really appreciate it when we actually have thinking people that are like, we can't trust this guy.
We can buy one of these at Walmart.
So,
I can also be a face with pins.
Long story short, she ends up being a really good leader, but for the most part, but ends up, because they're completely unprepared, getting 3 of the 5 killed. Like, 3 of them die fighting Psycho Green, and they go back to Zordon, and Zordon is just an idiot. And I don't know if we're saying anything about that or not, but he's like, oh yeah, I gave you no training, there was no preparation whatsoever, I'm an idiot. And it's like...
But
like
he does it again in Day the Dumpster!
I know. I think we're making a case that Zordon is just the most... idiot. Like, now 3 people are dead because of us. This is Zordon. No, Torona, not because of you. The fault does very much lie with me. The situation was extreme, but that is no excuse. I did not put you in the best position to succeed, and for that I am truly sorry. And then the female Red Ranger is like...
That sounds just like Zordon. That's great Zordon.
It's great, yeah. Sorry, really, that's all you're gonna say? The world is safe and forever in your debt, says Zordon. The lives of Daniel, Jamie, and Nikolai will be remembered! And then she says something, and he just has no more dialogue to say. Oh wait, no, he does after that. But anyway, and then he won't let them keep their powers. And no, he's just an idiot. And it's hilarious. Like, it's sad and a little chilling, at least for Power Rangers. But then hilarious because Zordon is such an idiot. I really enjoyed this.
He's not culpable at all.
Yeah, I really enjoyed.
At some point, I'd like to go through and read.
I don't know if we should talk about him. It'd be a lot of fun. I don't know if he's going to continue to have. If we're going to continue to build his character and talk about how he's kind of morally ambiguous and why he makes those kinds of mistakes, like, I would like to see kind of an Odin thing with him. So we'll see. Not movie Odin, but, comic book Odin. Okay, let's talk about the couple that you read with me. Okay. First of all, I had Eric read the first issue of the Jetsons, because I thought it was pretty decent science fiction and kind of an interesting take on this material in making it a little bit more serious and more about... in more of a social commentary thing. I think there's social commentary in the Jetsons just from its inception, but it's really kind of a classic science fiction piece, and I wanted to get your take on it.
Well, we talked about this a little bit the other day.
Yeah.
First and foremost, this is the Jetsons series that was never made in the 90s.
Mm-hmm.
This does not feel like the modern day Jetsons. This feels like the 90s days Jetsons. It looks like Real Adventures of Johnny Quest.
Except for idea-wise, it's a little bit more modern, just in the sense that some of the stuff that we're dealing with environmentally feels less far off than it would have in the 90s.
Than Captain Planet?
No, but that's not what I'm talking about. Just the fact that it feels any way you slice it, the stuff we're dealing with here feels more imminent.
Okay.
You see what I'm saying? We're not that far off from this future. This doesn't feel as far away as it would have in the 90s, and I think it's.
But I feel like we would have depicted the same future in the 90s.
Maybe so. I'm just saying that, like, maybe you would think to do it now versus because of how close we are to that stuff. Yeah. So specifically, some of the stuff that they're concerned about, and like, there's very much this too little, too late kind of thing in this book where we are starting to make some of the changes we should have a long time ago, but we didn't make them when we should have, so we've already kind of screwed our planet over.
We're just doing our best to kind of deal with it and.
Yeah, like Captain Planet was all about how we still have time. We can fix the problems we've made to we've caused. This is more this kind of modern. We might have already screwed it beyond repair, and so in that way, I'm not with you. I think
that's totally fair. That's totally fair.
And I don't think it's horribly preachy about that stuff. We have a lot of things talking about that idea right now because it's pressing and we should be talking about it. But
and it's already something kind of inherent in Jetsons, at least since the Jetsons film.
Right. Yeah.
And
of like why we're living on stilts.
Yeah.
Now here it's not stilts. It's like
it's
floating.
It's hover.
Yeah.
Which makes sense. Like.
Yeah, but that's such a iconic part of Jetsons. I kind of missed the stilts, but.
Yeah.
But anyway,
that's in no way practical. Although I guess they could have. I guess the other way you could have done Jetsons Behind is just make it a bunch of space elevators. Because that is something we're trying to develop.
That's true. Yeah.
So you could do that.
We can get all the way into space. Yeah. But anyway.
It's good. It's a really good, solid foundation. I'm interested to see where it goes.
Does it feel like we can get enough done in 6 issues, or should it be a monthly?
Well, the subplot with Rosie feels like it's either not going to get dealt with enough in 6 issues because of the rest of the plot, or we're going to just stop dealing with the plot for a little bit to deal with that. That feels like a subplot you set up for an ongoing series. But I don't know if the plan is, if this does well, we'll do more.
Also, that doesn't have to necessarily be a plot, though. She could just be kind of a voice of reason in the background, where like we explore.
It could just be background for.
We explore what's interesting about a human who becomes a robot to some degree, just because that's one of the futuristic science fiction themes we want to explore in this, and. There could be a mortality versus immortality thing that ends up fitting really well with the environmental ideas and like how to survive and how to keep going. Like I could see this going to a place where it starts to ask like maybe we're doomed and we can't solve this problem with the asteroid because we don't have weapons and stuff. So our only recourse is to have everyone put their minds in a robot.
That's true.
She's still alive when she does it.
Yeah, and she makes the choice to do it.
And so that is a way in which the subplots could converge.
That's true.
But I also think that her just being just being in the background, like giving advice and trying to keep her own humanity could be interesting enough. Like, we should mention the idea in this is that she is Jane's mother?
No, it's George's.
Is it George's mother? Yeah,
George's
okay.
mom.
She is George's mom, and I think that is inspired.
Yeah,
I love that idea.
Yeah,
it's
a really cool idea.
And all that talk about how like I miss being able to feel things, but I'm still more or less the same person. And I mean, we have dealt with this in other things before, but I think it's really well handled.
It's like Reverse Bicentennial Man.
Yeah.
And that she just wants to be there to help her son. She wants to be able to, for the rest of her life, be able to guide her son. What's weird is she talks about how she's going to be there essentially forever. And so she talks about, well, at least I get to see you all, like, to the end. But then what? Like, okay, and then there's 500 more years.
I had the same question, yeah. Where it's like, or are you just going to kill yourself after that? Like, what are you going to do? What's your plan?
I guess she would just keep raising the children and maybe just go through the lineage forward.
Yeah,
she would continue developing relationships with the children.
Or do you try to get all of them to put themselves in robots?
That'd
like,
be weird.
Is this the equivalent of the heads in water in Futurama? Like,
yeah.
Is this how we preserve the culture?
One of the ideas that I love in this is...
Real quick, back to Rosie, just before we move away from that.
Yeah.
I want to mention that the thing I've seen most recently that is that idea is the Donatello Metalhead thing.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, you told me about that.
But anyway, you've got to read that. It's just the best.
One of my favorite ideas in this is, essentially there was an asteroid coming towards Earth, and we're so screwed that we've spent all of our time and energy on survival and developing technology to survive, and basically put a complete ban on any weapons, any military applications of anything. that
we're overcompensating and trying to solve all of the problems that
when an
created
external
the
force
yeah.
starts coming, we're unprepared and we don't have a way to stop it. It's coming too fast. We don't even have time to build something. I think that's a really interesting idea.
We're Vulcan in Star Trek 09, but there's an explanation for it.
Yeah. I really like that. I thought that was really cool. They kind of do a thing kind of like that in Starlight, but not well, and I'm sure the movie will flesh it out more because that's all Mark Millar comics.
And also that idea that George is the only human that can still do what he does is kind of cool.
Yeah, he's the only human that does actual, like, engineering. Like, hands-on engineering. Everything else seems to be robotic. I thought the adventure with, what's the boy's name? Elroy?
Elroy, yeah.
I thought that was interesting, but I also felt like that took up way too many pages.
It did. Yeah. And I was kind of bored with it. Like, I'm going back and looking at it, trying to remember what even happened with that.
He goes down to rescue a painting that hasn't been damaged yet.
Oh,
for his dad
right.
for his birthday.
Yeah.
I actually thought that scene was kind of touching.
Yeah, it is.
But it went on too long.
Because it's kind of doing something that show would have done as a sitcom thing, but making it serious and more dramatic.
Mm-hmm.
It's kind of interesting the way it has sitcom ideas, but it doesn't play as a sitcom.
Mm-hmm. My only... I don't even know if I'm going to say this is a complaint. My only real thing is, I wish we tried something with Astro. He's just a dog. Like... have it be like some kind of like device where like we tried to get the dog to be able to talk and like it doesn't really work. Like I wish there was something other than just, well, he's a dog.
Yeah, but it's kind of the Ace the Bat Hound thing.
Yeah.
Like I didn't have a problem with it, but
Yeah, Ace the Bat Hound never talked. Or he doesn't initially talk and then he talks later. Like,
well, yeah, but it's taking a dog that was like silly and fun and goofy and turning it into something more serious, which is what this is. Like it kind of needs to just be a dog. I'm not with you there. I'm glad that it's just a dog.
Okay.
Especially because it's a Hanna-Barbera thing and they're not being Hanna-Barbera about it, so it's not going to talk and we're not going to pretend like it should. And like,
Okay.
I mean, maybe they will as it moves forward somehow. Maybe they will end up having a talking dog. But I kind of prefer the fact that he's just their dog. But,
are you a big Jetsons guy? I've gotten the sense that you're kind of a big Jetsons guy.
No, I always liked it when I was a kid, but I don't know it real well.
I have a thing with the Jetsons. One day they played the Jetsons for 24 hours straight on Cartoon Network, and I watched a lot of it and never went back. Like I burned myself out on the Jetsons.
Is it just the same
at like
story
9
over again, or?
I mean, it's sitcom story, so it's not the exact same. It's not like Scooby Doo. Although I also did that with Scooby Doo and did not burn myself out. So
That's weird.
but
I burned myself out on Scooby Doo watching half an episode of Scooby Doo.
half a movie of Scooby Doo.
Yeah, I don't like Scooby Doo.
I do. But the Jetsons, I kind of want to go back to the Jetsons because I haven't watched it since I was like 9. I just stayed up real late one night and just watched a lot of the Jetsons, and I was like, yeah, I think I'm done with the Jetsons. I don't think I need to watch that anymore.
I have always been annoyed that we didn't attempt to give it the live action treatment like we did Flintstones, because I just feel like it's easy and it's right there, and you could do a really cool.
I actually feel like it's probably the easier movie to make
than
the Flintstones.
And that movie was pretty cool, so I feel like you could do it with Jetsons.
I agree.
Okay, let's talk about this. This is weird that this even exists, right? We have a
Yeah, but
Goosebumps comic.
weren't we complaining about how there isn't any Goosebumps comics?
Yeah, but I never thought there would be. I mean, yeah, I would have liked to have seen it. Well, it's weird that IDW is publishing this just as another license and without R.L. Stine. Like, it's just, Goosebumps is a property that somebody could come in and do cool things with, and don't get me wrong, it would have been neat to see R.L. Stine attempt to do what he does in books, in comics, I guess. Now, we read his Swamp Thing, his Man Thing.
Yeah, we read the first issue of that.
It was unintelligible.
That's not true. We knew what was going on.
Well... Yeah.
Until the last couple. No, you're right. You're right.
We didn't. It
last
was
couple
unintelligible.
Yeah.
Anyway, no, we didn't finish it either. We only read the first issue. But this is doing precisely what I would have wanted with this. Which
I adored this.
Did you really?
I did.
That's cool. I thought you might be like, why am I reading this?
No, it's a Goosebumps book in comic book form.
What's so cool about it?
It's so authentic.
And it's mixing all that material and putting it all in the same universe without doing the movie thing where R.L. Stine is a character. It's putting all that mythology together. I think that's pretty freaking cool.
Now, to be fair, I do believe...
R.L. Stine's name is in there, and we do talk about book titles, but...
Well, and that was kind of fun.
Yeah, I thought so,
It's
too.
called Stay Out of the Basement. They go in the basement. I have to know how it ends. That sounds like something Jason would say. Like,
Yeah.
I thought it was hilarious. No, to be fair, I do believe that the Goosebumps series that R.L. Stine did in the mid-2000s, Horrorland, does that as well.
Oh, okay.
It puts all the mythologies together. So, I don't think this is the first time.
Okay, but it was fun to see it visually.
That's true. That's true. No, I loved how this felt so. This feels so much more authentic, I think, than if R.L. Stine had actually done it.
Wow.
Because it feels like someone who understands comic book medium translating that. Now, if you've never read Goosebumps, you have no nostalgia for it, don't touch the series.
No,
I think this is maybe a better way to go back and re-experience Goosebumps as an adult than actually going back and realizing that those books kind of suck. I think this is a little bit more fun way to do that.
Yeah, you're right. It is for us in the sense that there's kind of more to sink your teeth into here, so you can go back and have that nostalgia, but still sort of get a story. Mm-hmm. But it's also a brilliant piece of kids comics.
Absolutely,
right? Like I
absolutely.
gave this to Jason, he loved it.
I'm sure he did.
I feel like more adults are liable to pick this up than kids because we're into like a third generation now. I don't know how many.
When
kids
this
care
hits
about
trade,
Goosebumps,
it should be in the Scholastics thing, if that's still a thing.
Yeah, no, it is.
Okay.
It is. But no, it absolutely
when this hits trade,
be.
it should be in the Scholastics thing.
It was kiddie in the right way.
Absolutely.
Like it's very young adult. The drawing is, I don't even know how to explain it. Like it looks like a mid '90s like Nickelodeon cartoon.
Yeah, that's a good way of explaining it. No, I thought this was a wonderful representation of Goosebumps.
I was surprised by how much I liked that. I will keep buying that. Real briefly, I want to mention the X-Files JFK Disclosure. I'm not reading current X-Files, but I was curious about this. Yes. Yes, it is.
Was this also scheduled to be released?
What do you mean?
Never mind.
No. That's why they put this out. That's what it's about.
I know. I was just making. Never mind.
Well, I didn't know if you were. I didn't know where you were going with that. I thought maybe you just.
I was making a political joke, and I was.
Anyway, this is obviously trying to coincide with around when the files were supposed to be released for the rest of the JFK assassination stuff that we didn't have that might confirm or deny some of the conspiracy theories. A lot of experts don't really think that there's anything new in it that would really tell us anything new worth knowing. I've listened to some interviews where some of the people more in the know are like, yeah, it's not gonna tell us for sure if there was another shooter or anything like that. But this is kind of fun because it just goes full tilt in a crazy direction and is like. I'll just give this away for anybody that can skip a couple minutes ahead if you don't want to know this. But it basically says that Mulder's father was involved and aliens murdered JFK, and that's fantastic. But I wanted to.
Is the cigarette man involved at all?
I think he is. Yeah.
Because one of my favorite lines in the entire series.
Because there's some talk about it in the show. Yeah.
Is when he says when the cigarette smoking man says to Mulder, "I've watched presidents die." It's one of the most haunting lines and so well delivered. So if they do that, I want him to be there.
Yeah. Part of the reason... Oh, and I should also mention that at the end, there is a whole list of things that that the FBI said right after the assassination, didn't add up. There's a lot of good information at the end of the book in a couple of pages.
I love when X-Files does stuff like that.
Yeah, it's really cool, and obviously they're doing their research, and I really appreciate that. But flip through this a little bit. I'm recommending this mostly for the art.
Okay.
It is surreal and fascinating.
It looks like Arkham Asylum.
Yeah, I thought you might go there, but then it gets away from that. And,
yeah, it does.
Yeah,
it gets photorealistic.
It goes to some really different places.
Oh, I want to read this.
It's fascinating.
I'm going to read this.
And like every couple pages, it's a totally different art style.
Come back next week to hear me talk about this. But I am going to read this.
Yeah,
put that over here because I'm going to read it.
It's really cool.
Yeah, that's super cool.
Finally, on the vault, I want to mention the last couple issues of Ninja Turtles. And
ooh, that's like oversized, like has a spine and stuff.
They made such a big deal out of issue 75. When you look at I made this joke to William at the comic shop at Elite Comics when I was there. I picked this up and I said, William, like, what are they going to do for issue 100? He said, well, obviously it's going to be a hardcover and it's going to be like 150 pages. This is insane.
That's what DC used to refer to as prestige format.
Yeah.
That's what Killing Joke is.
And they had a bunch of stuff like that in the 90s. But yeah, so issue 74 and 75, I'm just mentioning both of these because I just read them together. Trial of Krang is 3 issues long, and it's really cool because it's courtroom drama at the same time as it's a big galactic war story, and both of these things are happening simultaneously. There's some pretty cool social commentary about the justice system and how easy it can be sometimes to manipulate, and Krang has a little bit of that Destroyo thing from the Tick. The system works and we believe in the system, where he's obviously done these horrible inhumane things, but he says he did it all for the right reasons, and you would too. And he has some interesting loopholes where he's able to convince people, and especially the king of the neutrinos, that they're not so different, and because some of the things that the king has just done in enlisting the help of the Triceratons and using them in order to fight his battles for them is not so different from Krang, that's 2012, from Krang doing whatever he needs to in order to keep the Utroms alive, and ultimately the king, they contrive a way, and I felt like this is too easy, but they contrive a reason that the king ultimately ends up being the judge. They do that thing, I feel like we just talked about this somewhere, I can't remember where. They do that thing where the bad guy, the defendant that's on trial that's clearly guilty, tries to get the judge murdered. Which is always weird, because it's like, well, they're just going to get another judge. What is the point of that? Didn't we just have this conversation?
It's something with time travel, isn't it?
I cannot remember for the life of me.
Because that's the plot of Time Cop, but
they do that in this. And you're like, well, what
you keep talking, I will rack my brain to figure out what we were talking about.
And yeah, it's not important. But anyway, so long story short, and I will give this away too, just because I think this is a great jumping on point, and this is the selling point to get people to read this. The king is this really principled guy who wants to do the right thing, and he says, okay, I can't sentence Krang to death or anything because he's convinced me that he may have had the right motivations even if he did the wrong things, and am I so different? Now, my answer to that is no, you're totally different, and you're drinking the Kool-Aid. But ultimately, he says, I'm just going to give Krang back to the neutrinos and exile him from here and let them do whatever they want to do with him. Meanwhile, what am I going to do with the Triceratons? Because I promised them that if they helped me out in this war, and they're usually enemies, so it's that kind of uneasy alliance. If I promised them that I would find them a planet, and I don't go through with that, then they're gonna be our enemies again. But also, it seems like the right thing to do would be to take them home, just like I just did with Krang. So he wants to be consistent. So what he ends up doing is he sends them to Earth, because that's the big end of this. Well, two big things. First of all, Krang gets eaten by Leatherhead, because the Leatherhead is like, no, screw this. He's done all these terrible things. Like, Leatherhead has been ruined by Krang. And he's like, no, screw this. He's not going back home. And he just opens his mouth and pounces and eats him. And it's awesome. But then, which is interesting, because we now are at a place where the Shredder and Krang are both dead. And I don't know where we're going from here, and if we're going to try to resurrect either of them. I have a feeling that Krang will stay dead, but Shredder will come back. That's kind of what I think we'll do.
You don't think that Shredder will get replaced? Like there will be a new Shredder?
I think they'll do Super Shredder first.
Okay.
There is some permutation of that, but okay. But I don't know. I mean, he's been dead a good long time, and we've never done anything with it, so I don't know. But anyway, so at the end of this, the whole idea is the Triceratons are an evolved form of the dinosaurs on Earth, and Earth is where they belong, so that's where they get sent. So the big change in status quo at the end of this is they look like an occupying force just showing up through a portal, and like, what do we do? And I'm so excited about that moving forward. I think that's really super cool. So anyway, I just wanted to mention it because, and the art, as always, is beautiful. We've got so this the Smith guy is doing a pretty good job, kind of emulating. This is Corey Smith, sort of. Well, I was going to say emulating Santaluco. I guess he's not. I guess he's doing more of like what the original first guy, I can't remember his name, was doing with the series. But I like him a little bit better. But then Santaluco comes back from '75 and just tears it up. He just tears it up. Let me show you that panel where Krang gets eaten, because oh my god, well, I mean, come on. Yeah. Like, it's awesome. It's weird because this thing keeps pushing these really violent... Oh, I forget his name, but he's crazy. But yeah. He's an assassin that they that is kind of I think. Oh, he's the guy who Krang ends up hiring to kill the judge. That's what.
Oh, okay.
But anyway, this thing keeps pushing like the envelopes of violence, but it's still never so violent I wouldn't give it to a kid. Like, you looked at that, like, I don't know if I should hand that to a kid, but I can't.
It's not bloody.
I can't help it because
it's not gory.
Because it's so. It's like it's got so many good like moral lessons, and there's real consequences for the violence, and it feels like something a kid should be reading, you know, especially because it's got all the trappings of a silly fun Turtles thing, but it's about something in this character dimension, and it's complex, and it's got a lot of ethical questions.
Well, it's that argument I've always made for like Sentai versus Power Rangers of like, well, there's consequences to violence. It's not just mindless violence.
Yeah. Where like Power Rangers is just a cartoon, but it's not cartoony enough.
Yeah. Whereas you know, in the Sentai, like, people die, and we discussed the fact that it's violence. It's like that.
So anyway, I've said this for years, but read Ninja Turtles, and now's a really good time. Before we end the Vault segment, I want to briefly talk about an indie underground comic that was brought to my attention by the folks that created it. I read it and liked it okay, so I thought I would talk about it real briefly and bring it to your attention. This is a book called Invasion from Planet Wrestletopia. It is this kind of wrestling...
Talk about wrestling.
I know. And here's the thing. Part of the reason I want to talk about this is because I liked it despite my lack of affinity for wrestling. I feel like it is for wrestling fans. Like, that's the group that's gonna mostly want to read this, but not being into that, I didn't have any trouble telling what was going on or getting what they were getting at. I thought it was funny. It's very farcical, but there is certainly some potential character dimension in the book. It is from video game writers and screenwriters Ed Kniehl and Matt Inton, from the new Rabbids Mario Kingdom Battle game that came out. He helped develop that.
And they contacted you?
Yeah,
that's really cool.
Yeah, that's really neat. Yeah, and so I want to take a look at it. As I always do with this, I don't like to talk about like indie underground things that I just really detested, because what is the point of that? Giving
you never heard of it, and it sucks.
Yeah, sure. But if I like it, okay, I'm gonna be like, maybe you should take a look at this. So this is a recommend more than it's anything. They're gonna get it on Comixology. I don't think it's there yet, but there's a web version. They sent me a PDF. I read it digitally, but they also, I think, already have put out at least the first issue in print. Maybe it's in trade already. I got this a few weeks ago, so I don't know where we're at with it right now. But I only read the first issue, and I'll show you, Eric, a little bit of what it looks like. So here's the cover. It's super 80s. It's ultra goofy, and it's fun because it starts in the year 1999, like that's the future, which I think is really fun. Great. And then it goes back where he does that standard, like we start in the future and then we go back, which I think is smart because the majority of this is the origin of or getting us started with this disgruntled wrestler who is sick of the Wrestling Federation because of all the stupid fake stuff he has to do. So like he doesn't like the way he has to like what it does to his reputation and the way he has to like be a cartoon character in order to do the wrestling, but he can't get along with anyone. And so when he leaves there, he goes all around the world or all around the country, and he keeps getting fired at places because he's just disgruntled and can't work with people. And what ends up alerting. So this is all like in the mid-'80s, and what ends up alerting the aliens to him is that he makes this absurd statement, kind of, I think, to intentionally get himself removed. He says that he's not just going to be the like American wrestling champion. He's going to be the Universal champion, and no one in the universe is going to be able to stop him. And so there actually is like a Universal Wrestling Federation that hilariously looks pretty much precisely like ours, and they're as theatrical, and they have all the fake stuff, and they think that he is like kind of declaring wrestling war on them. He's like making this big challenge, so they're going to go get him and make him and make him wrestle with them. Is the sense you get from the end of the first issue. And these guys, I think, have a really good voice for wrestlers, and that kind of like fake theatrical side of it,
like wrestle-lingo,
and also like smack talk. All of that is really fun, and this is a really weird note to put out, but I liked all the announcer stuff. Like, they have a really good voice for the announcers calling the wrestling matches, and that was all a lot of fun. My only real issue with the first issue is that it just doesn't get quite enough done. Like, I was excited about the premise of the Galactic Wrestling Federation, and was impatient to not get enough of that in an oversized 32-page first issue. All the stuff on Earth is not uninteresting, and it's funny, and I liked it, but I kind of thought I would get to see him interact with, or at least maybe you'd have like a standard last page big reveal. Oh, he's with them now at the end of the first issue, and he's not there yet. And I kind of it felt like we should have gotten there at the end of this first issue. Like, we do at least get to see how they work a little bit in space in the first few pages, but it would have been nice to bookend that and get back to space at the end. I mean, we get to see them getting the signal where he makes the announcement, but I wish he had been there at the end. But that was really my only issue with it. I think it's super fun and ultra goofy, and it's definitely worth a read if you're a wrestling fan. I mean, I enjoyed it too.
You should tell Duke about that, because Duke's a big wrestling guy.
I should, yeah. One thing that I thought was really funny too is this spaceship gets hailed at the beginning. And they open it with a quote from Ephesians, which I really appreciated, because it's like we wrestle not against flesh and blood, but against principalities, etc., etc. And I thought that was really funny. But yeah, so
this looks really good.
Yeah, I think the art's
this looks
cool.
like IDW could have put it out.
Yeah, absolutely, sure, or at least Boom.
Yeah.
I mean, not knocking Boom art.
No.
They've got some artists that are just as good as
IDW I think the book it most reminds me of is Big Trouble.
Yeah, sure. But one thing that's really funny is whenever anybody in this Federation hails a spaceship, they all call each other brother, and I think that's really funny. So anyway, yeah, definitely recommending that. I thought that was pretty fun. So anyway, that's going to be it for the Vault this week, and now we're going to move on to our next omnibus segment, which is
Closing the Vault. Oh no, I did that last time. You're like, no, my vault doesn't have one of those.
No, it does. It actually does.
Oh, it does. I was right.
I'm an idiot. It does have that. Yeah. So now we're gonna go on to how we felt about. We're gonna talk about Thor Ragnarok.